All right, we're live. What's up, everybody? We've got an hour. I don't know what's happening in an hour. Is there something I Oh, okay. Jay Dyer's streaming tonight. Okay, so that means I have about 4 hours till he starts. Because I have like 2 hours of coffee making, and boomer tech and all that. Um, anyway, I actually do have some sticky notes. Some sticky note. Oh, Jay's interviewing Jamie Kennedy. Oh, sick. That should be a good one. So I do have some sticky notes. Let's see. Some of these might be from, yeah, some of those are from the stream with BHM, Based Homeschool Mom, Rachel Wilson from Exposing Powerful Lies live streams. Speaking of exposing powerful lies, uh, the man who got me started in streaming. Shout out to Jerry. He had We're into the Cuda Lake tonight. Indeed, we are. No, shout out to Jerry. I was just thinking about this. Jerry had me on his show before I had any idea what I was. I think it was before I'd even posted anything. And so he had me on, and I had no clue what I was doing, but we had fun. And he's been on here a few times, I think, once or twice. I think, but anyway. Yeah, so we're getting back to it. It's been a while. I say this every time, but I always say I'm trying to get better about doing these more regularly. So yeah, shout out to everybody in the chat. Jerry, the boyfriend of Stumpy. Yes, indeed. Yeah. shout out to Stumpy, wherever she may be. But anyway, yeah. So we're doing the. I've been wanting to talk about this film for a while. This is one. I'm sure a lot of the people who are in the chat right now, people see this later. Jay Dyer and Tristan Haggard did a great stream on this movie a couple years ago. I don't remember exactly when that was, 2019, 2020 maybe. And they paired it with actually another one of my favorite films, which is Spring Breakers. So those I really like. And that was actually, I think, where I heard about. I think I'd heard of Under the Silver Lake, and which the guy, I should have looked his name up. I don't recall the director, because I was listening to a podcast on another film that he had done called It Follows. What is this guy? David Robert Mitchell. That's the name of the director. I've not watched It Follows yet, but I've heard good things. So anyway, yeah, we'll go ahead and jump into it. And I wanted to talk more about kind of, not so much. I mean, I'll talk about some of the plot, but this film has been analyzed. I know other people have done analyses of it and what have you. So. And this film's been out for I think it came out 4 years ago. So yeah, I mean it's out there, and I'm sure some of y'all in the chat have seen it. I know Kristen was saying earlier she hadn't seen it yet, so I highly recommend it. But yeah, the film starred Andrew Garfield, Riley Keough, I think is how you say her last name, who was actually the granddaughter of Elvis Presley, which is pretty interesting. I didn't know that actually until I was reading up on this. Yeah, got to stay hydrated. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and jump into this. So just interesting things I know is I was just taking, because I've watched this film a bunch of times, and then when I was watching it to take notes, I think I actually had to. It took me 2 sittings to finish it, and it took me like hours and hours because I kept rewinding and taking notes and looking at things. So yeah, I mean the whole film, it opens up with this girl kind of, trying to scrub the words "Beware the dog killer" off of the coffee shop window, not doing it very lazily, like it's not coming off there. It's basically um, she's just kind of lazily kind of scrubbing at it, and so that sort of I guess sets the tone for the whole film, and kind of with this idea of the dog killer, and who that might be. And so interestingly, the girl who is scrubbing the window, um, oh man, okay, sorry, y'all, I just got distracted. I may have to ban Jethro for that one. That was funny though. Shout out to OK. But yeah, so the girl is wearing a cutoff shirt that has Jim Morrison's face on it, which doesn't really mean anything in and of itself. I'm not a Doors fan. Uh, Break On Through is the only song I can sort of tolerate. I was where was I? I was in a shop earlier today, and they were playing one of their songs. I don't remember which one it was. It wasn't Break On Through. It was not LA Woman. I don't know, one of the Doors songs. And I was just like, my gosh, I just tried to tune it out. OK is probably out surfing right now. So yeah. Um, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, I forgot we have Doors fans among us. But it's just interesting because David, was it David? I always get his name mixed up. David Robert Mitchell. I mean, he seems like a guy who knows what's going on. Um, with the world. So, and people, if people know about Dave McGowan's book, Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, and the connections with Jim Morrison and his father being Admiral Morrison, orchestrating the whole Gulf of Tonkin incident, and so I don't know. I mean, it does now. Again, it's a Doors show. Like, there's a lot of Doors fans out there, but I don't know. I find that interesting, and it's just something I pick up on now, because it's one of those things that once you know about the whole like Laurel Canyon counterculture, it's anytime I hear any of those bands, and I like some of those bands, but yeah, whenever I hear that any of those bands, I instantly think about like, oh, these people are connected to high level military and intelligence and what have you. So anyway, Sam, who's the main character played by Andrew Garfield, he's just kind of staring blankly at the window, like he's turned around, standing in line at the coffee shop, and just kind of just staring. He almost looks concerned, which is something that's sort of interesting. I noticed is that sort of look, and I actually paused it, and I was I was trying to figure out like what is this look, and it seems to be concern, and so but he has this very kind of just lazy sort of slacker kind of look to him, and so you kind of get a feel for who he is pretty early on, and then right after he goes to his apartment and like rips this eviction notice off of his door. So he's clearly just not paying his rent, and so then he's just kind of hanging out in his apartment. Gets out his I think he's like on his, because he lives I guess on the second floor, and he's on his balcony. Excuse me, he's like on his balcony. I think he's smoking a cigarette, and he's gets his binoculars out and is sort of to get a better look at his hippie neighbor who is we'll say indecent, and that so it's that one of the major themes in in this film is like voyeurism, like looking at people when they're not really aware of it. And this kind of just sort of watching other people surreptitiously, and it's pretty bizarre. Um, Still trying to figure out exactly what to make of that, but his we can't all be Brooks and Dunn fan. Yes, exactly, Henley. You should be a Brooks and Dunn fan. And I'm speaking to all of you. Everyone should be. You should all be listening to Brooks and Dunn. And yeah, see, this is another the Chisel. Shout out to the Chisel. Really good, fairly new, like I guess hardcore oi band. Good stuff. But anyway, so yeah, Sam's mom calls him and she's asking about like what's going on, and he's says he's at work when he's sitting there on his balcony, just smoking and staring at his neighbor. And one thing that was interesting is in the film, he's shown smoking Morley Reds, which Morleys have come up in. Oh no, hardcore oi band, like yeah, not boy band, hardcore boy band. Yeah, that's actually Kristen makes a great point here. Just to oh, is it the right one? Yeah, Marilyn Manson basically is a hardcore boy band. Maybe not. Yeah, that was good. Well done. Yeah, I know. I have some friends who lived that life for a while, and I definitely learned a lot. And just watching these like weird, obscure documentaries and liking. I used to be really. I still like some crust punk bands, and like gutter kind of punk. Not as much as I used to, but yeah. So then anyway. His mom references a movie called Seventh Heaven, starring Janet Gaynor, who comes up in several times in the film. And I did some research on Janet Gaynor, and there wasn't really anything like I couldn't find anything weird about it unless I just didn't dig deep enough. And no, I am not a Gigi fan at all. No, I definitely not. But anyway, yeah. So like I was saying, he's smoking, seen smoking Morley Reds, which, yeah, like I said, that appears in a lot of films and whatnot. But those are the same ones. It's the same cigarettes that are smoked by the cigarette smoking man in the X-Files, which I find pretty interesting. I've been slowly working my way through the X-Files, watching it, and so anyway. Then I watched this movie like a month ago, so the plot's still pretty fresh. I'm going off my notes. So as to the best of my recollection, he then turns his sort of like voyeuristic gaze over to Sarah, who's played, like I said, by Riley Keough, Elvis Presley's granddaughter, and she catches him staring at her because she goes out to. She's out of the pool because this apartment complex is kind of like circling this pool. So he's staring at her. She catches him, and he kind of ducks away. And then so then this unnamed actress played by I don't know, I can't think of the actress's name. She's a great actress. I can't think of her name, but I don't think she's ever mentioned in the film. She's just this unnamed actress. Who this unnamed actress who shows up I think twice wearing outfit, these kind of odd sort of outfits, and I don't think she's involved in any sort of like gross kind of movies. It's Riley Keough. Okay, yes, thank you, Henley. I was not sure the pronunciation. Shout out to Henley. Yeah, and so it just seems she's in these sort of like probably schlocky, low budget like B movies, Um, and so, he's kind of hanging out with this girl, and they start engaging in certain activities, but they like totally disinterested. Like neither of them are connected. Like there's no connection there. They're just kind of, doing their thing, watching this, uh, this newscast about Jefferson Sevens, who disappears during a fishing trip, which I noticed is similar to Robert Maxwell, right? People know about Robert Maxwell disappearing on his yacht. So that is something I found. Yeah, just being out on the boat and then just disappearing like that. That's hmm, makes makes you wonder. But the thing, something that's interesting is during these activities, Sam claims to have. He tells the actress that he recently saw Nirvana, which that was bizarre to me because, um, like Cobain died in what was it, 94, I think. And so I don't know, and I think if I remember correctly, he has a big poster of Cobain, um, over his bed. And actually, another thing, if you look throughout the film, Sam dresses like Kurt Cobain, because Kurt Cobain would have like the t-shirts with the unbuttoned flannel over it, and just like normal jeans and Converse, which is exactly how Sam dresses for the bulk of the film, which is pretty interesting. And so, yeah, that's right, because she compliments him on his poster, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, I just saw Nirvana recently." And then he has a stack of vintage issues of Playboy on his nightstand, which is interesting because that's and this is something that comes up. There's a kind of a gross scene that if y'all seen the movie, you probably know what I'm talking about, where the same uh, magazines are utilized. Um, I'm trying to avoid being gross here, but that's sort of in stark contrast to how most of that kind of where most of that is people would go to the internet for that, but he uses these like magazines, and there's a really I'm gonna skip this because it gets some like really gross conversation they have. Um, and then so he has these notes. I refer to them as schizo notes, and he kind of like hides them when the actress tries to read them. And so then while um, after they're just kind of like just sitting in bed or whatever, and the actress is still there at his apartment, and the Sam is like staring out the window at Sarah. So yeah, there's this sort of I guess infatuation of sorts. So anyway, he gives Sarah. So he then runs into Sarah and gives her this dog treat, but he doesn't have a dog, and he claims his dog died recently. Now, what's interesting about this film is that one of the things is that Sam is basically he's sort of like an unreliable narrator of sorts, which the unreliable narrator is kind of difficult to achieve in film. Um, that's really something that's you see more in literature. Like with American Psycho, for example, with Patrick Bateman, you're kind of seeing he's explaining things. This is something actually Bret Easton Ellis does in some of his other novels as well, like Rules of Attraction, which is a just horrible, depressing. I mean, it's a great book. I enjoy the book a lot, but it's very depressing. It's a very depressing, just kind of novel, just nihilism and degeneracy, and I don't think Ellis is endorsing that kind of behavior. I don't think it's like encouraging or pro, that kind of attitude and behavior. But with that, if you've read Rules of Attraction, there's three different narrators, and they all give differing versions of events, which is interesting. So you kind of wonder, okay, what's true here? what isn't. But it's interesting because that's actually true to life in the sense that, if you talk to different people are going to give you about different events. People are going to leave things out that make them look bad. People might add things to make them look good. Um, which is not to say like, oh, everybody's lying, but people do what they do, and people are going to have different um, interpretations, I guess, of events and kind of yeah. So anyway, but yeah. So to get back to the unreliable narrator thing, this is what we're sort of seeing, at least in the way I see it. We're sort of seeing the events through Sam's eyes, though not directly through, because that's a technique you don't see very often, where sort of the camera is like the you're seeing it through the protagonist's eyes, right? I mean, actually, I was thinking about this earlier. The only uh, the only sort of I guess piece of media I can think of that is if you all have seen, the one thing that came to mind was the Prodigy video um, for their big song, which that's a wild video if y'all haven't seen that. That you're sort of seeing like through the protagonist's eyes. But anyway, so yeah, I sort of see Sam as kind of being an unreliable narrator because there is sort of some conflicting reports and not reports, but there seems to be some conflict, and he is often dishonest with talking. Excuse me, he's dishonest about various things, like with his mom, telling her he's at work when he's really spying on his neighbors. And so then, yeah, again, he oddly enough, he goes to Sarah's apartment, and they again have a very sort of frank conversation about, gross topics that he was talking to the actress about. But anyway, another thing I noticed is Sarah had a poster for How to Marry a Millionaire on her wall, and I don't remember who was in that movie. I looked it up, but um, I don't recall. So then, yeah. Anyway, her roommates come home with bags of clothes, and this guy who's dressed like a pirate. And this whole movie, I kept thinking, because this movie is set in Silver Lake, which I think is, I'm not up on my Southern California geography and demographics. From what I understand, um, the Silver Lake, I think, is in East LA, and it's been sort of gentrified. That's what sort of like a hipster kind of area. And this film reminds me a lot of I'm a big fan of Father John Misty. I've been a fan of his for a long time. And if you look at his music videos from the era of Fear Fun, which was his first album as Father John Misty, there seems to be a lot of similarity. I don't think those were filmed in like the video for I'm Writing a Novel. I don't think that was filmed in Silver Lake. It could have been, but it's sort of that. I sort of get the same kind of vibe, if you will. Not a lame word. Um, so then, anyway, Sarah basically kicks him out, and they walk out, and there's these fireworks going off, and she seems kind of perturbed by it. Like, she seems upset, and the fireworks kind of seemed almost like they were. It sounded like Morse code or something, and I don't know if I was a friend of mine. I watched this movie. He'd watched this movie, and we were talking about it, and he kind of jokingly said that he was like, oh yeah, I think this movie is kind of like bringing out a like latent schizophrenia or something. And it was which we'll get to. I know we're short on time because we're going to lose everybody. So yeah, I'm trying to get through this, but it's all good. We'll keep going. So then Sam finds his he walks away and excuse me, finds his car, has been and the kids who are there's it's these younger kids, probably I don't know, middle school aged, who are doing it, and they're vandalizing other cars on the street. And oh, dude, Fleet Foxes, nice, good band. Yeah, actually, I said this before, and some I think it was I don't remember who I was talking to, but I said that the best thing that the best part about Fleet Foxes was when Josh Tillman was playing drums for them, and I don't know, whoever I said that to got upset about it, but Wilco's a good band too. And though I like Uncle Tupelo better, I'm a big Uncle Tupelo fan, but I like Jeff Tweedy's work with Wilco as well. But yeah, so then Sam sneaks up on these kids and like just savagely beats two of them. And then he this was pretty wild. He takes a raw egg and cramps it down one of the kids' throats, which is pretty gnarly. So I mean, we see that this guy, like, he looks kind of unassuming. He's not a big guy or anything, but he certainly has a tendency towards and a capacity to commit some pretty intense acts of physical violence. Do I ever game? I used to. I like Age of Empires. I used to play Age of Empires a lot. I used to play this game called Monkey Island as well, and both of those were a lot of fun. I've been wanting to get back into Age of Empires, and had a PlayStation 2 for a while, and I played those. But no, I haven't done much gaming since then. Yeah, so yeah, and one of the notes I took is that Sam is sort of ruled by his base instincts. He's sort of he just kind of is interested in I guess fulfilling biological drives, but not for any purpose just aside from his own self-gratification, and just reacts violent. And look, I get it. Like, if somebody vandalizes your car, you're gonna be upset. I mean, if somebody vandalized my car, I'd be upset about it. But I don't think I would, like, basically give boot parties to two kids in who are like 12 or 13 or something. That's pretty that's pretty gnarly. And so then there's a sequence where it's unclear if he's dreaming or not. And I think dream sequences can kind of be like played out, and they're sort of played out, and they have to be done right. But I think this one is done properly in this film. But we see the dog treats come back up because he follows this trail of dog treats to what appears to be Sarah's dog, which is dead with a hole in its side. There's flies buzzing around, and then a woman who is dressed like Sarah. And this is actually kind of a creepy scene. He's on this walking path, and he comes up, and there's this woman who's dressed like Sarah from the back, and then she turns around and has this kind of like, she's like cannibalizing I guess it would be cannibalizing, but she's oh no, then yeah, okay, so she's cannibalized. She's like eating a human, like the human's innards, which is it sounds insane when you say it out loud, but she kind of has. I sort of thought she had like a witch-like appearance, kind of like Wicked Witch of the West, and she starts barking at him, and then this body that's on the path, it like splits in half, and then it's like slides off in different directions really quickly. Very bizarre. I don't know what to make of that. I'm not really sure where to go with that. But anyway, so then Sam, who also has a bunch of posters for old Hollywood movies in his walls, he wakes up on his couch, and to an episode of the Andy Griffith Show, where all my fellow Southerners will appreciate that. Andy Griffith was probably broadcast outside of the South, but I just refuse to acknowledge that fact. But anyway, Otis, who's the town drunk, is telling Opie that the dogs that don't get picked up are gassed, and yeah, I guess taken to the, some kind of like gas chamber or whatever. So then so Sam finds out that Sarah's apartment has been cleaned out overnight and she's gone. She just disappears. And then so his friend, played by Topher Grace, asks, said there he's hanging out with Sam, and he asks him if he's heard about the dog killers, plural. And then so Sam seems surprised that there's more than one, and kind of brushes and sort of like brushes off the Topher, I can't remember the guy's name, but Topher Grace's character kind of brushes off this assertion of that it would be traumatic to see your dog get stabbed, which is interesting. So then, he breaks into her apartment, finds a box for clothes, rifles through it, takes a Polaroid of her, finds a personal item that he gets kind of gross with. And again, I mean, this guy's like a total creep, and he's a kind of a weirdo and a perv. And so then this girl shows up, puts this box that he had just taken things out in the closet into a Trader Joe's bag. He leaves, and then he notices this this symbol drawn on the wall. And it's sort of like two squares on their side linked together, and it looks like one of those hobo kind of symbols that people out, like hobos, would use to communicate. And so then he follows this girl, and he hides behind a tree with a lost dog flyer stapled to it. And this is something that's interesting because there's sort of like a total disregard. There's a disconnect from nature, and it's like people don't even realize what is like what's going on with it, because like people are just stapling flyers to trees, which normally people do that to light poles or something, but it's just like these trees that people don't even have any kind of regard for nature whatsoever. And it's probably not good to put staples in trees. I don't know. I mean, leave the trees alone. So anyway, then we find he has a check, and this is something that keeps coming up. It's throughout the whole film. He doesn't pay his rent, but I don't think it's that he can't pay his rent, because he draws the symbol on the back of a check, so he pays for everything throughout the movie in cash. So he clearly has money, but we just it's not really sure what's going on with that. So anyway, then the pirate appears again because these girls rent a paddle boat. They row across and he's following them. Then this pirate comes up. They give him the Trader Joe's bag, and he runs away. So then he follows them to this rooftop pool party, parks in a handicap space, and inexplicably has a handicap tag. He doesn't seem to have any kind of disabilities. And I know, people say that disabilities aren't always visible, but he seems to be pretty capable kind of guy. So it really makes me wonder, like, is this his mother disabled and he's using her car? I don't know. I don't really know what to make of that. And so this woman in heavy makeup kind of gives this feminist speech, and at the end she says 333 333. If you sort of look at that, it's like 33 33 33. I think we all know about 33 and the significance of that. That's a number that is important to certain groups. Anyway, and then so this band that keeps showing up, Jesus and the Brides of Dracula, are playing at the party, and there's this kind of cringe performance art happening, which this is a thing that, I don't know if y'all are involved in like the art, and I don't know if you have an art scene in your town, but this is something that you at least I have seen a lot of. The area I live in kind of has a bit of an art scene, and I heard somebody quote Andy Warhol saying that art is anything you can get away with. And I blame Andy Warhol for a lot of this because a lot of people. I mean, he wasn't a horrible painter, but I mean, there's a lot of people that they're just lazy. Like it's the dumbest. They'll just do just the laziest, most low effort kind of stuff, and then call it like, oh, I'm doing art, and yeah, so it's like, oh, I'm gonna walk around with balloons and hand balloons, like blow up balloons and hand them to people, and it's art. It's like, no, that's insane. But anyway, another thing that I noticed with the sort of disconnect from nature is Sam runs into another friend at this party, and he's like, why are we at a rooftop pool party when the beach is right there? I mean, the beach is right down the street, but they're at a pool party on top of a roof. And same thing with the trees. It's like there's no regard for, excuse me, the natural world. And so then there's another scene where these girls bark at him after he kind of like barges into the bathroom at the party. Yeah, Studio 54. Yeah, I've heard about Andy Warhol's. Slow Boy Whiteboard. It makes a good point. I've heard about Andy and some of the things he was getting up to at Studio 54. Pretty really weird stuff. But anyway, and then so then it gets announced on Twitter. Actually, this tweet comes out that at the party, that Jefferson Sevence's body was found in a fiery car crash, which very interesting if y'all are familiar with Michael Hastings, who was one of the greatest journalists, maybe the greatest journalist of all time, one of the few good ones. He died in a fiery car crash in, I think it was Beverly Hills, if I remember correctly. It was in Southern California. I think it was Beverly Hills, where his Mercedes caught fire and went careening at like 100 miles an hour into a tree. So really makes you wonder. And then I think it came out in the WikiLeaks. What was one of their drops that they have there's technology that exists where vehicles can be controlled remotely. So really makes you wonder about what was going on there. So then there's this owl's kiss that appears, that it's sort of this succubus like creature, I guess, that is sort of has this owl face, but a sort of feminine body. So then anyway, the actress shows back up, and then Sam, so I think this is after he gets sprayed by a skunk, and he's sitting in his bathtub soaking in tomato juice, and he very passionately explains to the actress his theories about subliminal messages in media, and what and about the elite, and these messages that are like put into media by the people who run the media. And she so he reveals that this was pretty interesting. He reveals this record that he has been keeping over the last month about Vanna White's eye movements and then the patterns during Wheel of Fortune. And so he's theorizing that the elites use these hidden messages in media to sort of basically communicate with each other. And she's pretty creeped out about that. And yeah, I mean, she shows up in another costume that looks like something that like a a sorority girl would wear on Halloween or whatever. So again, implying that she's not doing like highbrow kind of kind of roles, and she's sort of isn't thinking deeply. I guess does not seem to kind of to think deeply about what's going on. What might be going on beyond just sort of what people like what people kind of see, and most people would watch media, and they're not going to be thinking about, okay, like now I watch things and I notice, oh, like that's this kind of propaganda, that's that kind of propaganda, and these strange messages, and so then there's another kind of dreamlike sequence where there's this woman who really resembles Marilyn Monroe. He's on his balcony again, watching her from the pool. She invites him into the water, climbs out, and then starts barking at him. And so there's this repeating incident of people barking at him. So let's see. He follows another girl out away from the apartment complex. She's carrying a headshot down the street, and he's staring at her backside. It's something that he's like constantly staring at women. And so, he then sees a bunch of women lining up for what seems to be an audition with this like kind of sleazy, like overweight guy. Not that, people who are overweight are sleazy. I don't mean it like that. I just mean that this guy like looks just scummy and gross. And he's like holding auditions in his garage, which makes me think that this is not, I mean, like, who has auditions in garages? Like your personal garage at your house. It seems like there's something else going on. And then there's, again, lost dog flyers stapled to these trees. And in the intersection, again, we see in big capital letters, "Beware the dog killer." So anyway, keep it moving here. Just some other things I noticed that were interesting, like the author. So there's a comic series called Under the Silver Lake, and audition, exactly. Really, really. I mean, I don't know. I can't really say anything else given the platform we're on, but I think we all know what's going on here. So then beware the dog killer is spray painted in big letters in the middle of this intersection. The author of this Under the Silver Lake comic series is actually, interestingly enough, played by the same guy in what was it? It was Mulholland Drive. If y'all have seen Mulholland Drive, then there's that scene where those guys are in the diner talking, and this guy's talking about, there's this like creature behind the dumpster behind the diner, and then they walk out there, and this creature, kind of appears for a moment, and then disappears again. It's a very creepy scene, but it's the same guy who plays that guy. So anyways, this comic book author explains that dogs, musical instruments, right, and humans have been going missing over the last 2 years. He says, it might be related to some kind of TRAFFI, right? Y'all know where I'm going with that. Or the cult of the whale, which is never really explained, I don't think, or the dog killer. So then he, gets out this dollar bill and has this whole thing where he shows this sign of the owl's kiss is hidden on the dollar bill, and everyone who uses US dollars is subject to this owl's kiss jurisdiction. It's like entering, excuse me, into a pact with her. Got to do a Lynch impression. Oh man, shout out to Jethro. He always wants me to do impressions, and I'm terrible at them. let's see. I don't know if I can't do. I don't know if I can do David Lynch, but we'll do really weird stuff. There you go. That's so yeah, and then there's this whole montage of these very like sexualized corporate ads that the guy shows him, and that's and then the comic book guy, he appears to have what is like indecent kind of photos on the wall of his hideout room, which where he has these cameras where he's watching everything. Um, so then again, Sam is dishonest with this friend about his, because he walks the friend to Topher Grace. I think what's Topher Grace? Yeah, Topher Grace. He tells him, oh, his car is in the shop, but we see his car get repoed earlier in the film, and so his friend remarks that, oh, he's got this drone he got it from Amazon where he gets quote everything. Which is sort of one of the few. I mean, the internet, because this film came out in 2018, and this is not. I mean, the internet has, certainly ramped up over the last several years, but we don't see a lot of. I don't think we really see a lot of technology in the film. Interestingly enough, I mean, there's not a lot of use of cell phones. I mean, there's the mention of Amazon, but then there's there's that like the announcement about Jefferson Sevence's car crash comes out on Twitter, but excuse me, yeah, people don't really use a lot of technology. But then we have like the comic book artist who has the cameras everywhere, and then so the Topher Grace character, he remarks that he's been scouting out houses to spy on. And he uses this drone to like fly over, and they spy on this woman who is crying. Like she walks into her house and then just sort of like starts breaking down, crying. And it's, we don't know why. There's got to be something. There's potentially all kinds of speculation. So then Sam just kind of tells his friend that he thinks he's being followed. And he just, the Topher Grace character is just kind of, very nonchalantly and sort of indifferent. He's like, yeah, probably. He said, who's not being followed these days? So, but yeah, interestingly, so yeah, I forgot about this. He mentioned his friend, Topher, played by Topher Grace, mentions that he calls the version of the internet is an alien hive mind, and he says it's a cesspool that makes everyone paranoid, which he's actually 100%, I think, correct about. I mean, the internet there's some great things on the internet. I've met some cool people via the internet, and we're using the internet right now. But yeah, it does seem to create this sort of hive mind, and yeah, I think it certainly has ramped up paranoia. I think particularly with we know like everybody with the NSA and whatnot, and logging and tracking everything, and data being tracked and followed, and so yeah, I think there is. I think some people just don't care, but I think there certainly can be some paranoia that comes out of that. So anyway, so yeah, Sam goes to this screening of a film at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. He's leaning on Alfred Hitchcock's headstone, or no, he sees this girl leaning on Hitchcock's headstone with a guy in a headdress and war paint. This guy does not appear to be native in any, doesn't appear to be at least. So then these two girls and this guy get picked up in a limo, and who's in the back seat? The pirate. The thing is, we never really find out who this pirate is. That's one of the unanswered questions. So anyway, Sam goes to this party where he's given this cookie, and he eats the whole thing, and that's like the cookie has to be unbroken for him to get into this into this party. So he eats it before going in. The security guard at the door, tells him he has to like take a bite or whatever. So he eats the whole thing. So then Sam's friend Alan reveals to him at this party that it looks like it's in like a crypt or mausoleum or something. He reveals to him that he hooked up with this girl who told him that there are messages hidden in the Jesus and the Brides of Dracula's music. So again, Sam pays for drinks with a wad of cash. Like he clearly has money, but yeah. So yeah, most of the lyrics to these, to either the like Jesus and the Brides of Dracula or this one of the Bride solo shows, the lyrics are mostly just like la la la, or they're just they're like unintelligible because there's seems to be no real lyrics. So then he runs into this like balloon girl, as I referred to her, and she basically gives him this whole spiel in favor of hedonism, basically just like preaching hedonism to him. Let's see, I had a note on that. Yeah, so there's another thing that, these people are disconnected from nature, and there's also a disconnect, like I was talking about earlier when he was with the actress, that there's like sex and intimacy are totally disconnected. And, he's dancing with this balloon girl, and she just kind of, very sort of enthusiastically, but like almost nonchalantly is like, oh, we should, F. And that actually made me wonder if that was a nod to Eyes Wide Shut, right? The final line of Eyes Wide Shut. So if y'all have seen that, the famous line that I almost said Kim Kardashian, Nicole Kidman delivers at the end. So maybe not, I don't know. But that's something that comes to mind. So then Sam's mom calls him while he passes out on this grave, and his mom calls him, tells him she's mailing him a tape of a Janet Gaynor film. So we see Janet Gaynor again, and we find he's laying on her grave. The camera kind of pans to see that. So then once again, there's this contact lens billboard that says, "I can see clearly now." And this is almost like it seems obvious. Almost, I don't really like the term on the nose, but it's almost like on the nose, where it almost seems like too obvious, but in a way that works. And I think that Mitchell, the director, I think that he does that. This film is done well. So yeah, but the I can see clearly now. It's like, what? Again, it's just kind of right there in your face, but it's also in his face. So it's sort of, I guess, better in a sense. So anyway, yeah, then we see that, there's a bunch of actresses. This actress he met at this movie screening at Hollywood Forever. It turns out she is a hooker, and there's this whole agency, Shooting Star, that is, basically running these actresses out to appointments or whatever. And so then, there's a mention of this. She mentions that she went to this party full of, quote, old drunk men, end quote. That Sarah, Riley Coe's character, was at. She says it's right out of Gatsby, which I don't know if Henley is still here or not. I haven't seen him in the chat in a minute, but shout out to Bayes Lit Analyzer, because if you haven't seen the Baselit Analyzer or listen to the Baselit Analyzer stream on The Great Gatsby. I highly recommend it. It is that once she said that, she was like, oh, it's, it's a big open party in a luxury neighborhood right out of Gatsby. I immediately thought of Baselit Analyzer stream, because I'd watched this movie several times and I hadn't watched it for a while, and then I listened to the Baselit Analyzer Gatsby stream, and then once I watched this again, I was like, whoa, okay, now some things are falling into place. Now, does Mitchell, David Robert Mitchell, or Robert Dale, I always get his name mixed up. Does he know about that? I don't know. It might seem that way. So let's see. Yeah, and then he runs into this homeless king who, tells him that he should don't run from coyotes. You should follow them and see where they take you. And he said, everything belongs to the coyotes. They're just letting us use it. So anyway, let's see. We'll skip over some of this. There's a scene where Sam goes back to the comic book artist's house, and these dogs, as he's leaving, this cop tells him that the cop, which is played by Deputy Ferguson from Longmire, which is a great show if y'all haven't seen that, great show. He says that the comic book guy unalived himself, but we see that the floor and walls are soaked in blood, which it looks like blood sprayed everywhere. Which, I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert on what it looks like when people unalive themselves, but it does not appear that would be the case unless he did it in a pretty violent kind of manner. But anyway, so yeah, these dogs kind of bark aggressively at him, and so this is just a quick note. Well, no, we'll get to that in a minute. Well, actually, no. I guess it's a good time to mention. So there's debate on whether this dog killer is actually Sam or not. People debate that, and I think that I tend to think he is. And I found actually this physically, it pains me physically to say this, but there's a whole subreddit on this film, and I stumbled across it while I was looking up a few things, and it's actually an interesting subreddit. I mean, Reddit is awful. It pains me to even go on that website, even to read about this. But I found this thread where there was kind of debate where some people were saying, well, no, it's Sam's not the dog killer because everything's pointing to him being the dog killer, which means he's actually not the dog killer. Some people are saying he's obviously the dog killer. I don't know, but it's just interesting because people say that the dogs can get a sense about people, if they're if they like them or not, or if they're a good person. I think, who knows, maybe not, but it is interesting that the dogs have this kind of reaction, and these people are always barking at him, and so if he's killing people, is he also stealing their money? Like, where's he getting the money from? It's he doesn't seem to have a job, so and then he tracks down. He goes to this Gatsby style neighborhood in LA, and there's this older guy there who almost seems like he's waiting for him to show up, and so he kind of the guy tells him he's written all these famous songs. He's playing them on the piano and singing them, and There appears to be, it could be a wolf. I don't know. It looks like a coyote, like a stuffed coyote in the background of this music room. And so the songwriter tells him that there is no that there are messages hidden in all the media, and he says there is no rebellion. There's only me earning a paycheck, which again goes back to the Dave McGowan, right? His book Weird Things Inside the Canyon, where the thesis being all these like counterculture figures are all just they're all like they're all run by somebody, and this is astroturfed basically. And so then the songwriter like pulls out this gun and starts shooting at him, and instead of running away like most people do, somebody shooting at you, you're going to try to get away, especially if you don't have a gun to shoot back at them. But we've already seen that he has no, like Sam has no problem using violence. He beat those kids down in the street. He assaults the front band for Jesus and the Brides of Dracula pretty violently. And then he takes this guitar, which is the same guitar that Kurt Cobain played, and pretty graphically beats the guy with it until his skull is in pieces, basically smashes the guy's head with it. So it's interesting because that Kurt Cobain was known for smashing guitars on stage. That was one of the things that was kind of a thing he would do was smash guitars. So anyway, so he ends up he follows a coyote actually. Sam follows a coyote to this party where Millicent Sevens, who is Jefferson's daughter, is just kind of hanging out drinking. And they end up talking about a painting by Janet Gaynor. And I don't really, again, the Janet Gaynor thing, I don't really know what to make of that. But actually Millicent says, this is after, not long after he's just, smashed the songwriter's head into dust, basically. She says that anyone who could kill a dog wouldn't think twice about killing a person. So again, pretty obvious. I think. And so Sam claims he was bitten by his grandparents' terrier as a kid. So he's always been a little bit afraid of dogs. So then anyway, they go walking down the street and run into this homeless guy who kind of verbally accosts them. And Sam says that the homeless are like poltergeists who haunt the edges of society, watching people live the lives they can and bully people out of jealousy and sort of this idea that they're like these, I don't know, like demonic, otherworldly kind of creatures, similar to the bum behind the diner in Mulholland Drive. So it's just sort of Lynchian kind of idea. Anyway. Spoiler alert. So for people who haven't seen this movie, so then they go swimming in this reservoir. Millicent says she thinks someone is following her. She gets shot and is kind of sinking down in the water in this exact like replication of this image that's on the one of his favorite his favorite Playboy covers. Am I talking about OK? I would never talk about OK in such derogatory terms. So anyway, he sort of stumbles across this cult of sorts of these these like hippie kind of boomers who claim that they're going to go somewhere real to live like kings, and they're kind of going they're going to be sealed in these tombs with 6 months of supplies that's only for the super wealthy. Costs a lot to build a tunnel system and keep it hidden, and even more to unalive people and not be harassed about it. So yeah, I mean, we get the idea these people are very wealthy. They're very wealthy, very powerful, um, and yeah, I mean but they're also crazy. Like this is insane that they're gonna seal themselves in these tombs and then they're going to ascend. I mean, this is like you know the Heaven's Gate kind of just insanity. Because obviously, like, what's going to happen when you seal yourself in a tomb underground that you can't get out of? What's going to happen after 6 months, right? Like you're gonna starve to death, obviously. So these people are nuts. So yeah, then he gets on this call, finds out that Sarah has gone to into one of these tombs, and she says, "Well, there's no getting out now. Might as well make the best of it." To which Sam replies, "Yeah, same here." And it's like, does he mean that in terms of making the best of it? It seems deeper. My take on it is it's deeper than that, to mean that he also can't get out, that he's when it comes to like killing dogs and people or whatever, it's like it's something that he's stuck there and he can't get out of it, and he just has to make the best of it. So then, funny, Sarah suggests he should get a new dog, and he kind of sarcastically says that he'll think about it. And so he's up again. I kind of skipped over this, but he's up in like somewhere in like in the hills in California. And so one of these hippie girls that this final man, I think as he was called, she describes everything turning in. She has this dream where they ascend and everything turns into light, and claims that their thoughts will carry them. Now this sounds very Luciferian, this idea of like, oh, it's all light, like we're all going to turn into light and we're going to ascend into another plane or whatever. So it seems to be very it's just very Luciferian kind of idea. And then the final man, as he's called, he says that no one with any sense chooses to stay into the world, and he makes some critiques about society. I don't recall specifically what he says, but I had that I've written down that some of them were correct. But his views ultimately are kind of satanic and I think sort of Gnostic and like anti-human. So then anyway, Sam's kind of he gets confronted by this homeless king who asks him about the dog biscuits in his pocket, and Sam claims, again, we see dishonesty, unreliable narrator kind of thing, where he says he liked a girl a long time ago who had a dog. Homeless king asks if she stopped loving him, and Sam says yes. Sam says he was hoping for things to go back to normal, and he wanted to give the dog a biscuit and rub its ears. Now, that doesn't seem to be about Sarah. Like that doesn't seem to line up. Is he talking about another girl? I mean, again, we're sort of dropped into this story. There's no real background. Like we don't know who this guy is. We don't know where he came from. We don't know what his backstory is. It's one of those films that sort of leaves. It's almost like there's more questions than answers, and so I think Sam asks if he's going to be if they're going to kill him, and the homeless king says they might, but he doesn't know yet, and he tells him not to mention anything to anyone. Which that, like I was saying, with that like hobo sign, the kind of sideways squares, kind of linked together, it says keep quiet, and so again we see don't mention anything to anyone. And then, so Sam goes, walking down the street, and he again sees this billboard, and it's being painted over with this sort of Ronald McDonald looking like clown. and it says hamburgers are love. So it's this kind of distortion of this kind of like twisting, you know, of love. And again, it's one of those things that's really obvious, but I think it's obvious on and on purpose. And I think that's something that Mitchell did well. So let me see. He's back at the coffee shop from the beginning, where beware the dog killer is only slightly cleaned off, and then the Jesus and the Brides of Dracula song "Turning Teeth" is playing over the stereo. So he winds back his apartment. The "Keep Quiet" sign is painted over the inside of his apartment door. He watches this Janet Gaynor tape and was eating saltines and drinking orange juice, which that was the snack that he'd eaten with Sarah at the beginning of the film. And so anyway, again, he sort of winds up going to this like his older neighbor, this kind of like hippie woman. Goes to her apartment, and it's implied that they enter some kind of relationship. And then he's standing out on her balcony looking into his old apartment, as this sheriff's deputy apartment manager go in, I guess, to evict him. And he looks different. Like I think his hair is like slicked back. He's not wearing a shirt, and it's a very creepy, like unsettling kind of scene. And so or kind of look, and so something I think that, and this is something I thought about a lot of different theories, and as I was kind of looking through some of the posts on the Under the Silver Lake subreddit, there's a lot of debate on there, like I was saying, and people don't seem to there's all these different kind of theories and whatnot. And I think that ultimately, sort of what I've come away with is that when you get into like cons, piracy, kind of things, you can sort of like drive yourself crazy with it in a sense, not like actually crazy. I don't mean like going actually off the rails and doing anything stupid, but I just mean you can kind of get twisted up in these things. You see that happens to people where they start seeing these things everywhere, and I saw one post, and I think I was Googling something about the film when I found this, where someone had actually found the coordinates for where, when Sam goes up to that place in the mountains where he finds these people, who are going in these tombs, that someone actually apparently found like that's a place you can't access, like you can't get up there. And again, I think that it's this. The message of the film is that, I don't know if there's a message, but one of the things you can take away from it is that like this stuff can just keep going and going and going, and it's easy to kind of get to really get caught up in these kinds of things. And so it's almost, you can kind of come away with it, but it's like, yeah, a lot of this stuff that they're talking about is true, with what goes on in Hollywood, with, what goes on, like with the rich and powerful and these kind of like weird cults that these people are in. But that this sort of like, it never ends. It's kind of this, like you can never really get to the bottom of any of this. And I think that this subreddit, and the ideas are interesting. Like some of these people have come up with some very interesting theories, but I think that that's almost like not the point. I don't know what the right word is, but with the film, that they're kind of proving the point of the film, because I don't think you're supposed to figure it out. Or maybe you are. I don't know. Maybe, there is some kind of mystery there. That can, finally kind of be the code can be cracked, so to speak. But I don't know. That's something I was kind of thinking about. And I don't maybe I should have thought about it more before I did this, and had a something more concrete formulated. But um, yeah, I think that that's almost like a, how do I want to say this? It's like there's so much in the film, and you kind of wonder how much of that is legitimate. Is there, are you being misdirected? So, yeah, I think it's a fun film, and there's a lot to I think to be gained from it, and there's a lot of connections there, and I think that's sort of the point, is that you can kind of endlessly, you know, like pour over this film, and go over it with a fine toothed comb, um, so to speak, and probably never get to the bottom of it, and sort of wind up like where Sam was when he was talking about Vanna White, and following her like eye movement patterns. You can kind of do the same thing. So anyway, yeah, and I guess like there's like the paranoia, the voyeurism, which is all kind of, I guess, tied in. Like we see that more and more, with the internet. So they I don't know. There's almost like a, excuse me. There's almost like a, I don't want to say anti-internet, but again, I mean, the internet just doesn't really factor into this. And really, the only explicit mention of the internet is when this, that they're the Topher Grace's character is kind of talking about the internet, talking about the internet in disparaging terms. So, yeah, I don't know. So anyway, that's pretty much everything I had on it. So yeah, that was fun. I've got some books coming in that I'm thinking I'm gonna hopefully be able to do some streams on. I had another book I was working on. I talked about the book about the LSD. That's a very complex book, so I don't know. I'd still like to do something with it, but I have some other books that should be interesting. So yeah, no, all good, Jethro. I get it. So anyway, I'll hopefully see y'all again soon.